Today, Proxidize has more than 10,000 users in more than 100 countries. We're used by more than a dozen government agencies. I think quite a few Fortune 500 companies. A lot of people come into this with the assumption of, oh, I'm going to set up a Proxidize equipment, some Proxidize equipment, and then in a month or in a few months, I'm going to be a millionaire, right? And it's never the case. You'd be surprised the amount of scraping that government agencies do. Large companies or large governments, they need to have everything on premise. They don't trust the cloud. They don't trust any cloud provider. They need to have their data on premise. So it was clear that we are on the brink of saturating the market and that, we need to evolve as a company in order to continue to grow.
This interview is brought to you by databoutique.com, a marketplace for web data.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Scraping Insights, the video interviews series of the Web Scraping Club. Today with me there's Abed Elez, the CEO and founder of Proxidize. Hi Abed, welcome on board.
Hey Pierre, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, it's always a pleasure for me to interview experts like you, people that are running companies in this industry, which is quite secretive. There's not so many information around, and I'm always learning something when I'm doing these interviews. But before going on, do you mind sharing with us a brief history about you, your career, how did you start the company, and so on?
Of course. All right. So my name is Abed. I am 26 years old. Most of the year I'm based in Amman, Jordan, though I'm usually traveling. A bit of history about the company is, it actually goes back to maybe 2016, 17. I actually dropped out of school to start a LinkedIn automation tool. I wanted to build one of those sales automation tools. And that's when I found out what a proxy is and how those works. And I started, the very unfortunate and difficult journey of finding the right proxy provider. I'm sure you know the pain very, very well. And I quickly realized, being young and having no budget, that I can't afford the big providers, and the affordable providers don't really work that well. So I had a bit of a technical background, and I basically just decided to start building my own. Initially, just basically renting out unknown VPS servers from unknown hosting companies who had clean IPs, and I was a member in a bunch of online communities that do like growth hacking and marketing, that sort of thing. And I would talk with the members about my experiences. And I realized everyone had the same pain. Everyone struggled with proxy providers. Everyone thought especially with residential proxies, that they're massively overpriced and that there's a big need for a solution. And after seeing all the excitement and momentum, and especially after the LinkedIn sales thing I want to build was a horrible failure. Did not work out at all. I had no idea what I was doing. And it went nowhere. So I thought, okay, there's a lot of demand, and this is something that I know very, very well and that I've worked with for a few years, which is proxies. And I kind of wanted to this is when I got the idea for Proxidize. But back then I didn't really want to repeat the process of starting a company because I was like, I just came out of a failure. So actually what I did is I wrote an ebook about proxies called Proxino. And it was basically, what is a proxy? How does it work? And all the in-depth technical explanations that anyone would need, plus how to make them. And that actually went viral. This is in 2018, 19. I kept updating it. And once that was successful enough, I thought, okay, we have to start Proxidize. And until that point, I was a fully solo effort. I was just on my own, a kid in his bedroom working on odd stuff here and there. And to me, actually, Proxidize, when it started, something very, very few people know is actually the very, very first version, which was purely a CLI tool, no GUI, nothing, launched in January 1st, 2020. So right before COVID. And that was basically, had zero traction for the first 11 months because I was still working on it and I started building a team. And then we had a soft launch in November of 2020, right basically in the middle of COVID. And that was a slow start. But over the next year or two, Proxy started gaining traction. We started, we had Fortune 500s reaching out. We had governments reaching out. A lot of people were interested in building their own mobile proxies. And from there, we figured okay, like obviously Proxidize get a lot of traction. It's grown very quickly. We in 2022, early 2022, we decided to drop all other projects that we're working on, odd stuff, and purely focus on Proxidize. And yeah, from there, thankfully, we have been very, very successful today. Proxidize has more than 10,000 users in more than 100 countries. We're used by more than a dozen government agencies and I think quite a few Fortune 500 companies. And that's our story.
Great, super interesting. Very relatable because I had the same point with proxies in those years. And at that point, there were mobile proxies that were costing, if I remember correctly, $40 per gigabyte. And I needed them for only a few websites I needed to scrape. But it seems to me a crazy amount of money. So what I did was to create my own proxy with a Raspberry API board and a SIM and a local SIM. So I used that for scraping, and it seems like I built a small Proxidize with one cluster.
Nice.
So you mentioned now that the company is basically selling the infrastructure for building your proxy, but also the software, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Why a company should build instead of buy proxies, in your view?
So for us, we had a lot of different types of customers. Some were very successful with us, some weren't. Those that were successful, we always solved one of two critical needs. Either one, the need for critical cybersecurity, especially with, like old school large institutions, either large companies or large governments. They need to have everything on premise. They don't trust the cloud. They don't trust any cloud provider. They need to have their data on premise. And you'd be surprised the amount of scraping that government agencies do. And this is kind of where we found most of our success with the on-premise solution. The other area where we found a lot of success as well is companies that do a lot of scraping that want to pay less. And you did the math once on one of your blog posts, which was exceptional, by the way, where per gigabyte, depending on how much the data plans cost you, it ranges anywhere from $0.1, sometimes up to $1, maybe up to $2, depending on the data plans. But Proxidize at scale can be extremely, extremely cost effective. And we found those two kind of areas to work incredibly well. Because one thing that a lot of people don't realize when they start out with Proxidize is that you're building hardware on premise, right? This requires maintenance. And I guess this is where a lot of people fail with Proxidize. They assume that this is something I can set up and put it in my bedroom and forget about it. But that is rarely the case. There's maintenance involved. You need to make sure everything is up and running and always up to date. And sometimes issues happen and you need to have staff close by. Sometimes a lot of small market or sole traders / individuals that come in thinking, hey, Proxidize is this really affordable solution. It's much cheaper than the large incumbents. They quickly get surprised when they find out, okay, it is much, much cheaper, but also there's work involved in maintaining everything.
Yes, and of course, between the pros, yes, you mentioned the article. Also, you wrote an article about the unit economics of the proxy industry. And but I want to keep this article for later because I have another question. But keeping on the pros and cons of building a proxy farming house, I wanted to know: do I need to be a technical guy to maintain a house proxy farm? I mean, do I need to know about networking or do I need to be a system administrator, or it's quite self-maintained?
So with Proxidize, I think one of the reasons we're very successful is we built the platform to be as intuitive and easy to use as possible. With that said, there are still potential pitfalls and issues, and this is where our support comes in. Like whenever I talk to users, which I do very often, the number one feedback I get is you guys have exceptional support because we invested a lot of time into ensuring everyone has professional onboarding, professional support. All of our support staff are highly trained network engineers that know what they're doing. So no, you don't need to be technical at all. But the one thing that you need to understand is that there is maintenance time, right? As long as you can allocate 1 or 2 hours a month to do maintenance, you will be completely fine.
Yes, and the reason I'm asking is this to you because I have always in mind this idea of building my own in-house proxy farm, and I'm evaluating. I'm evaluating the fact to build a series of videos on YouTube to show how to do it. And I'm recently digging a bit about this all this rabbit hole of information there's on the internet. You can buy from Proxidize, Alti, other providers, but also build all by yourself.
Right.
And it seems that the more you know, the more you should know because there are more information about that. And but in the end of the day, it depends, on my opinion, on what you need to do with your infrastructure. Because let's say if you're willing to scrape, let's say, e-commerce websites and you need to set your IP in different countries, of course, this cannot work because you have a physical infrastructure in your home. But on the other hand, if you don't care about the variety of the IPs of the countries, especially of the IPs, but you need, as you mentioned, a secure infrastructure managed by yourself where you don't have the limits of imposed by proxy providers, like as an example on targets, because there are many government websites you cannot scrape or something like that. Then, of course, this is a trade-off you can accept. And yes, and definitely about the cost. I made some math on my reasonings, and yes, Proxidize can be so cheap, especially if you live in a country where you have unlimited plans on mobile. And what I wanted to ask you is this also a potential business for people that are desiring to build a in-house proxy farm? I mean, you have so cheap traffic at your disposal, maybe you can sell it to other companies or other proxy providers. Is this a viable business?
Yeah, so we have a lot of people who are using Proxidize purely as resellers, where they're not resellers in the traditional sense. They buy the hardware and the platform from us, they host it themselves, and they start selling the proxies directly, and we have the API functionality for that directly. But for us as Proxidize, to be honest, this is not something we focus on, because what we found out is a lot of people come into this with the assumption of, oh, I'm going to set up a Proxidize equipment, some Proxidize equipment, and then in a month or in a few months, I'm going to be a millionaire, right? And it's never the case. Usually the biggest challenge is, sure, you can easily set up your own mobile proxies using Proxidize or even building something on your own. But the challenge is going to be acquiring the customers. This is probably by far the number one challenge that anyone would face, especially with how competitive our industry is. So it's definitely doable, but the problem is acquiring the customers.
Yes, and that's the point of your article you wrote for the Web Scraping Club, because I from an external point of view, I imagined that the proxy industry was a high margin one, where I suppose there were higher margin, but as you mentioned in the article, the margin were not so high. It's if I remember correctly, we are speaking about less than the 10% of margins, because of your expenses in marketing, as you mentioned, in acquiring new customers and so on. And do you think that the proxy industry is booming right now because of all these AI tools that require scraping and so on? And so the margin are going to increase, or instead you're seeing more and more competition, so the margin will go lower?
So I think things will continue to improve. There's definitely been a lot more usage than before. Like this year is looking much better than last year and the year before. The margins, I think, continue to go lower. Like what kicked off the low margins and the recent discounts by all the providers is, I'm not sure if you saw them, but there were a couple Chinese providers that came into the market that absolutely slashed the prices, and this forced everyone to follow them. And I think the biggest challenge with proxies, and all of us as companies face, is that proxies are becoming commoditized. It doesn't matter whether you buy from A provider or B provider or C provider, you're almost guaranteed to get the same quality of product. And the only differentiator or the only room for innovation is price, with some very rare exceptions, of course. So given that, I think it's going to continue to improve, but I don't see margins improving much without massive innovation that maybe there's something out there that no one has discovered yet. So I think margins are probably going to continue to stabilize, maybe around 10%, 15% for more lean companies, 5% for less lean companies. But right now, I think no one's concerned with margins. Everyone's concerned with growth. Same is true for us. Like we can slash a lot of our expenses and grow our margins massively, probably by 10x if we wanted to. But we are more concerned with growth, especially right now because we're basically in spring. And I believe that maybe over the next few years, a proxy winter is coming where customers are not going to be as easy to acquire as they are today, although they're quote unquote easy, because even right now, it's not that easy, really, given how much competition there is.
Yeah, so that's, I can imagine, because even the web scraping club, there is every week a new company comes to me and wanted to be exposed in the promotional spaces and so on. And quite frankly, it seems to me that there's so much competition, and the prices, as you mentioned before, are becoming low and low. Now, we said before that some years ago the gigabyte per mobile proxies were about 40. Now I see they are about 5
Yes.
or 6, 7. So, but I cannot imagine that they can go even lower, because otherwise, unless there are some big players want to push the prices low and low to force people out of the business. It can be a strategy, but I don't know how lucrative can be in the long run.
This is definitely something that can happen. I don't see that happening with the big providers. There's a few big proxy providers in our industry, and I think personally they're all great companies built by very, very smart people that I deeply appreciate and respect. But the challenge they have is if you have 2,000 employees and let's say you're bringing in $100 million in revenue, you can't really slash your prices in half, because then your cost is so high that you're going to be in the red for probably a period of time that you are unlikely to be able to afford. I think probably the main thing that's going to continue to drive prices down, although I don't think they'll go much lower than they are right now, maybe continue to drop by 10, 20, 30%. But after a while, it stops being economical. So I guess we'll see how things change.
Do you see the same trend also in your specific niche, like the in-house proxy building, or at the moment you don't see so many competition around?
So for us, we are very lucky. There's a lot of competition, but there are years behind us. So much so that we have kind of felt that we have saturated the space. And for reference, we do a couple million a year in revenue. And at this, I'm not sure if you noticed, but as of December last year, we actually deployed our own hardware and started selling the mobile proxies directly, because the proxy builder platform stopped growing as much as we were hoping it would grow. So it was clear that we are on the brink of saturating the market, and that we need to evolve as a company in order to continue to grow. So there is competition. Some of it is, great competition that we love and respect and sometimes get inspired from. Some is just A/B copies of Proxidize, which we also don't mind as well. But they're all, unfortunately, I guess, maybe behind us, because perhaps if we had like another competitor who's, where we're teeth to teeth, maybe this would give us extra motivation and inspiration to push harder and innovate harder. But unfortunately, there isn't.
if I remember correctly, some years ago you were renting or selling just the hardware. Now you're recently also selling the software. So you can plug your hardware and bring your hardware and plug in your software and use the hardware you want or you already have in house. Is it correct? Is it a new revenue stream for you? Is it something that
sorry, for us, we've always been a very dynamic platform. Proxy has always actually been, or the Proxy Proxy Builder, which is the platform that lets you build your proxies, but your own mobile proxies, has always been hardware and software. Previously, we used to have different licensing for the software, but today the way it works is you can either buy the hardware from us, or you can bring in your own hardware, which can be USB modems, or you can even use Android phones if you want. And on top of that, there is a software license that you need to purchase that's billed per endpoint, is what the term we use. And an endpoint can be either a modem or a phone or other devices.
Great. And yes, as I mentioned, I made some research about it, and in my hypothesis, there was the let's say a small farm with 100 proxies or 50 proxies and so on. And given the plans we have in Italy, let's say I can scrape for a price for 10 cents per gigabyte. An hypothetical price of price for B2B price for reselling this bandwidth to other companies is 1 gigabyte. It means a sort of a very huge margin, fat margin, which is too good to be true. So where's the devil in this reasoning?
Yeah. So some of our competitors, the large proxy providers, do actually directly, I think I mentioned to you in the email, they do actually buy directly from people who are operating their hardware. Selling 20 proxies is probably going to be easy, but turning this into a large scale profitable business is going to be the challenge, because I know of this, let's call them X provider. I know someone they're buying from, and they're buying, I think, around 20 proxies, and they haven't really scaled over the last 2 years that they've been doing this. So selling 20, 30, 40 proxies, sure, it's nice change. It's a nice revenue stream, but it will never be something scalable where you can actually build a proper business on top of it. That's, I think, is the main challenge.
Yes, because, of course, if you want to scale, you need to have different places around the world where to put your infrastructure, because, of course, if 50 or 100 proxy IPs in Italy, given that Italy is not such a big market, is just a no-go for scaling, because no one is interested in at the moment in these numbers. And of course, yes, if you are in New York or London, can be a good way, and you can think about scaling a bit. But yes, and the other thing, I think you mentioned it also in our email exchange, was the quality you need to provide to the proxy provider, because they need speed.
Right.
They need so your infrastructure, not only the Proxidize infrastructure, of course, but also your own home infrastructure. Needs to be very responsive with low latency. Otherwise, you won't be accepted in the program in their pool of IPs, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. You need to have reliable signal, and you need to have reliable power as well.
Yeah. And what are the main components from a technical perspective or of a in-house proxy farm? We have dongles, we have the USB rack for plugging the dongles. We have the server that connects the dongles to the internet. Sorry, to the home internet. But can you explain us a bit what is needed
Yes.
to build a mobile proxy farm.
So definitely. So you need the USB modems. You need the SIM cards, which go into the USB modems. You need the USB hub to plug the USB modems in. Sorry, I'm a little unprepared. I wanted to prep some hardware to show you in real time, but I came a little unprepared. But yeah, you need the USB hub as well. The modems go into the USB hub. Then you need the centralized server. So with Proxidize, we have the Proxidize SX2 and SX4. And these are just very small Ubuntu servers with some customizations, but they're just Ubuntu servers. And then you need to connect these to your home router, and you need to run some software to build the proxies, to route the connections out through the USB modems, through the cellular connection, and to control other stuff, like if you want rotation or control over maybe SMS or other stuff like that. Those are basically the main components. With Proxidize, the only added component is we also have a cloud dashboard where you can go in, if you say have multiple hardware kits that are in different locations, you can manage everything from the same cloud dashboard. Also, if you have phones, you can manage your USB modem kits and your phones from the same dashboard. And that's basically about it. It's a relatively straightforward system.
Yes, so I suppose the bottlenecks in this infrastructure is, of course, also your home router, because you need it needs to be very reliable and fast.
Yes.
And because it's it's the full, it's the focal point of all the infrastructure. So if it breaks, you don't have any more signal from the Proxidize infrastructure.
Yes.
Great. And you mentioned about your customers. Who's the typical buyer persona of this kind of infrastructure?
So the typical persona for us is usually mid-market to enterprise companies, say 200 to 1,000 employee companies. They are usually have been doing scraping for a lot of time, or they're web scraping, specialized web scraping company, web scraping platform, or web scraping API platform. And they're usually incredibly technical, and they've tried out all proxy providers. Eventually they came to Proxidize. They saw the benefits. They're able to deal with the maintenance if they want to use the builder, or maybe they're interested in buying from us the proxies directly to save on costs. Usually all these things together make the perfect persona or the buyer persona for us.
I suppose they are also working a lot with social networks scraping, I suppose, because it's something that is very reliable, so very... They need it needs mobile proxies. You need mobile proxies to scrape social networks, I suppose, and you don't need many different IPs in concurrent, but you need a mobile IP for logging in to.
Yes. So one of probably our second biggest use case is ad verification, where you have these companies that scrape social media to verify the ad placement and timing for their customers. And we've been very, very successful with this vertical specifically.
Okay, we mentioned the business persona. So why these companies are choosing Proxidize instead of a well-established proxy provider X, Y, or Z that are out there?
So the main reason for that is a combination of cost and reliability. There's a lot of like low cost proxy providers out there that I'm sure you know very well about, that are selling a gig for $1, sometimes less, sometimes $2. Very, very affordable providers. The main issue with those providers is they are not the most reliable and they don't have the highest IP quality. Thankfully, with Proxidize, every single time I speak to a customer and I'm like, hey, why did you guys choose Proxidize? They're like, hey, you guys are able to provide us the best cost in the market while maintaining very, very high quality IPs. Now, with that said, that is probably the main limitation with Proxidize is the number of IPs. Like for us in our pools, in our Proxidize proxies pool, we have about 2,000 IPs live at any given moment. This is a lot less than the very large providers who might have 30,000 in our testing, 30 to 40,000 live at any given moment. But what we found is because the IPs are much higher quality and a lot less likely to be blocked or rate limited, they tend to perform just as good, if not better, from the big providers. So those are the main reasons someone would choose Proxidize: the combination of reliability, cost effectiveness, and IP quality.
So if one of our of a person in our audience is looking for a proxy provider today, what should be aware of, what he should test to choose the right proxy provider for him?
So I think one thing that every buyer needs to be aware of is, unfortunately, in our industry, there's a lot of marketing lingo and there's a lot of marketing bluff. I'm sure you've seen it where someone might pretend to have X million number of IPs, right? The highest we've been ever able to test is, I think, something like 70,000 IPs live at any given moment in the United States, for example. And usually it's a similar range, slightly less in other countries. So no one has, I think, millions of IPs live at any given moment. As a buyer, the things that you should really care about is, number one, the reliability of the provider. Do they have good uptime? Do they have a full tolerant system? Are the proxies going to be there when you need them the most? Are they going to be live? Number two is going to be the IP quality. There is a lot of free tools that you can use out there, although some are reliable, others are, in our experience, not that reliable, and some we found in testing to be complete honeypots trying to actually catch proxy IPs. So be very careful when checking out IP quality websites. Not to mention any names, but some work and others don't work that well. So you need to test out a few different ones. And lastly, cost, especially if you plan on running a large operation. You can very, very quickly consume a lot of data if you're scraping for a number of reasons. So cost is very, very important. And then lastly, I'd say maybe support, but also like our ethos is if a platform works really well, is well built, is intuitive, support, you should never have to talk to support. So I'd say those are probably the main reasons or the main things that any new proxy buyer should care about.
Great. Thank you. So I think we have done for today. So thank you, Abed, for being with us and for your competence and expertise that you share with us.
No worries. Thank you so much, Pierre, for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Have a good one.